Hi, I would like to make people aware of the treatment and neglect that is occurring in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, sometimes resulting in death, and is being covered up. Substandard medical care has become acceptable in the eyes of Dr. Solano, the Chief Medical Examiner. This video is about my father, William Merrifield, and his death. I would like to ask anyone who has suffered any harm or loss of a loved one at the hands of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to stand up, speak, and seek legal advice. I would also like to encourage all human and civil rights groups to gather at the JSO and make our voices heard. If anyone was in the holding cell with my father, William Merrifield, who was in a wheelchair on June 24th, 2009, please contact me. You really can make a difference. My father's health had seriously declined over the past several years, and he went to Florida to get his wife, who was there helping her daughter. While in Georgia, my father was involved in a minor traffic accident, and the officers in Georgia saw that my father needed medical attention and took him to the hospital where he was admitted, and it saved his life. Several days later, my father left the hospital and somehow, without a valid driver's license, was able to get his car from the impound, and he continued his trip to Florida. Several hours later, he was involved in a more than minor traffic accident in Florida. Trooper Ezell, who was at the scene, told me she thought my father had Alzheimer's disease because he did not even remember his name or that he had been involved in a traffic accident. Rather than taking my father to the hospital, they arrested my father for driving without a license and took him to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He was transported inside in a wheelchair and admitted he was never allowed his one phone call. My father was in green hospital scrubs, and they did not identify him with his wallet. His wallet was left untouched in the backseat of his car, according to the photos that I have 3 weeks after his death. He was identified from the hospital discharge papers on the front seat of his car. The JSO also said that they allowed my father the use of his own cane, which is not true. I have a picture of the cane in the front seat of the car 3 weeks after his death. The medical examiner also said that my father's body was cremated with his cane, which obviously is a lie because it's in the front seat of his car in the picture that I have after his death. For many years, my father was on a strict daily regimen of Lantus. During the last 14 days of his life, my father received his prescribed daily medication of Lantus 7 out of 14 days and only half the dosage, which makes this medication ineffective. Dr. Solano stated that it is customary to change diabetics' prescription, even though he never physically examined my father. Dr. Solano's records for my father, from which he states all medical decisions are made and prescriptions are based upon, showed an 11% error rate. Dr. Solano's response to this was, every clinic makes errors, and 11%, it's good. I find this completely unacceptable. The 11% errors that I found was only with the records that I had. Imagine if I had more records. The JSO never made any attempt to locate my father's family, even after my father told some unbelievable and impossible facts during his intake. My father never received his one phone call. While in JSO custody, my father spoke with a chaplain, whom he told that his mother, my grandmother, had died, and he needed to call the funeral home to make arrangements. This was not true. The chaplain did call the funeral home, which was where my grandfather, his father, had been several years before. The person who answered remembered my grandmother and called her. When we called the JSO, they would not let anybody speak to my father, and they said there's a court date set for June 24th, and that was it. On the morning my father was to be arraigned on June 24th, he had a severe low blood sugar attack, and in the preceding several days, he had had documented critically low blood sugar attacks often, and that required treatment. Instead of receiving the life-saving medical attention, my father was transported to the courthouse, never followed up on, left in his wheelchair in a holding cell to sit where he suffered hours where he died a slow and painful death. It was almost noon before anybody noticed my father. He was drooling, but at this point it was too late. His brain had been deprived of oxygen for so long that he was brain dead, clinically brain dead, and his body temperature was 93 degrees. This does not happen in a half an hour. There were two conflicting reports from officers Norton and Sanders, which are in agreement and not in agreement, describing the events in the timeline. There are areas that are whited out and handwritten. One report states the events had happened on June 25th. Actually, it happened on June 24th. A third report places my father in the jail clinic receiving medical attention at the exact same time that he was being transported by the ambulance to the hospital. all these reports, or at least 2 of these reports, obviously lied and falsified. I filed a formal complaint with the Internal Affairs Division to get an answer on this. The reply after 7 months was that they found no evidence to either prove or disprove my claim. To me, this says that we don't want to say anything because there's a pending lawsuit, and what we say either way will hurt our case. They're supposed to be independent of the jail, but I guess the Internal Affairs Division of the JSO is just as corrupt as the JSO itself. When my father arrived at the hospital, he was clinically brain dead and his body temperature was 93 degrees. I was told he had suffered many hours before reaching this point, and that he would have exhibited many overt, obvious symptoms and signs of distress before he got to this point. My father was resuscitated, placed on life support, and died on July 5th, 2009. Had the JSO administered my father's medication according to the prescribed dosage and sought prompt medical attention, my father would be with us today. A doctor at the hospital told me off the record that I should consult an attorney. I miss my father more than words can say, and there's an emptiness that no matter what happens with this, that can never ever be filled. His mother, my grandmother, waits every night. My dad used to call her every night at 9 o'clock and say that he loved her and see how she was. She still waits for the phone to ring. She waits in silence, and then she cries herself to sleep, knowing that she'll never ever hear her only son's voice again say that he loves her. He didn't need to die. JSO had many opportunities to save his life. The United States spends billions of dollars protecting the rights and humane treatment of citizens of other countries, but what about the citizens of the United States? Don't we deserve to be protected and treated humanely? If anyone can help me get justice for my father's unnecessary death, please contact me at carrytheshopper@gmail.com. I would like to ask all news reporters, all media, all government officials to please help me get justice for my father and to make changes at the JSO so that no one else needlessly suffer or die. This could happen to any of our loved ones, and procedures need to be put into place to protect the physically and mentally ill. One life senselessly lost is one life too many. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you in advance for your help. Even if you cannot help me, please forward this video to everyone you know. Maybe someone else can. Together we can make a difference in the world and help protect the lives of our loved ones. There are many more facts and reports in this case that can be furnished upon request. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you.